Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself in a quiet room. A gentle breeze drifts through a window, carrying with it the faint scent of fresh air. The soft glow of a candle flickers in the corner, and somewhere nearby you can almost hear the rustle of leaves outside. A sense of peace settles over you, inviting you to sit back, breathe deeply, and allow your mind to wander through time. Tonight we begin a journey, not of kings or conquests, but of something closer, more intimate and profoundly human, the history of the modern mattress. It may sound surprising that the story of mattresses is worth telling at all. After all, every night we collapse onto our beds, sometimes without much thought to the surface beneath us. Yet the bed is one of humanity's oldest companions, an invention so woven into our daily lives that its history stretches back thousands of years. The modern mattress, the Sealy, the Simmons, the Tempur-Pedic, represents not just a product, but the culmination of centuries of human ingenuity, industrial innovation, and our eternal pursuit of one simple goal, a good night's sleep. Before we explore the giants of the industry, before the logos and the marketing jingles, we must first step back into the deep past, when the concept of a bed was far simpler and far more primitive. For as long as human beings have existed, the search for comfort has shaped the way we sleep. The earliest humans slept on the ground, often on earth floors, huddled near fires for warmth and protection. But archaeological evidence suggests that even prehistoric people sought out ways to make the ground softer. Bundles of grasses, piles of leaves, or even animal hides were laid out as makeshift bedding. In South Africa, archaeologists discovered what is considered the world's oldest known bedding, dating back around 77,000 years, made of layers of reeds and rushes, carefully arranged to provide comfort and insulation from insects. By the time of the ancient Egyptians, beds had evolved into something far more sophisticated. Pharaohs and nobles often slept on elevated wooden frames, sometimes ornately carved and gilded with gold. These beds were symbols of status as much as comfort. The Romans, too, valued their sleeping arrangements, stuffing mattresses with wool, reeds, or feathers depending on one's wealth and status. A wealthy Roman might recline on a feather-filled cushion, while a laborer might find rest on straw. These ancient beds reveal a pattern that still holds true today. The search for better sleep has always been tied to the resources, technologies, and economies of the time. What you slept on often reflected who you were in society. The seeds of the modern mattress industry were planted long ago in this universal pursuit of rest and status. Moving into the Middle Ages, beds became larger and more elaborate. For Europe's aristocracy, massive four-poster beds with curtains were not just a place to sleep, but a statement of wealth and security. Curtains served both practical and symbolic purposes, keeping warmth inside during cold nights and giving sleepers a sense of privacy. Beneath those canopies, the mattresses themselves were filled with down feathers or wool, stitched into heavy sacks of linen or canvas. For the commoner, however, sleep was much simpler. Straw mattresses, sometimes called pallets, were the norm. These straw-filled sacks needed regular maintenance as they attracted pests and became flat and uncomfortable over time. In fact, the old saying "sleep tight" comes from this period, when ropes stretched beneath a mattress had to be tightened to prevent sagging. By the Renaissance, mattress fillings began to diversify. Horsehair, pea shucks, and even coconut husks were experimented with. The wealthy continued to enjoy softer, feather-stuffed bedding, while the majority of people lived with coarser, less forgiving alternatives. Yet, regardless of social standing, the idea of improving one's bed was never far from mind. Each century brought subtle innovations, inching closer toward the age of industrial breakthroughs. The turning point came in the 18th and 19th centuries, as the Industrial Revolution transformed nearly every aspect of human life. Factories roared to life, machines churned out goods, and mass production reshaped entire industries. Among them was the quiet but essential world of bedding. One of the most significant advancements was the introduction of cotton as a widely available material. Cotton was lighter, cleaner, and more resilient than straw or wool. By the early 1800s, cotton-filled mattresses became increasingly common, making comfortable bedding accessible to more than just the wealthy elite. But perhaps the most revolutionary innovation of this era was the invention of the coil spring. In 1865, German inventor Heinrich Westphal is often credited with developing the first coil spring mattress. Though his design initially went unnoticed, It marked a dramatic leap forward. Springs provided consistent support, resisted sagging, and offered durability that straw or feather simply could not match. However, the idea needed refinement and visionary entrepreneurs to reach the masses. By the late 19th century, America was buzzing with invention. Railroads stretched across the country, electricity lit up city streets, and factories produced goods at unprecedented scale. In this environment, the mattress industry found fertile ground. The United States was shifting from a primarily rural society to an increasingly urban one. Workers in factories and offices sought better rest after long days. Comfort, health, and efficiency became intertwined ideas, and sleep was no longer considered a luxury but a necessity. It was during this period that companies like Sealy and Simmons emerged, reshaping not only how mattresses were made, but how they were sold and marketed to the public. Their names would soon become synonymous with sleep in American households, each brand carving its place in history through innovation, bold strategies, and sometimes fierce competition. But before we dive into their individual stories, it is important to understand the broader cultural backdrop. The late 1800s were a time when science began to turn its gaze toward sleep itself. Doctors and reformers started to speak of rest as essential to health and productivity. Advertisements of the era frequently linked mattresses not just to comfort, but to vitality, wellness, and even moral character. To sleep poorly, many argued, was to live poorly, and to sleep well was to live well. Imagine for a moment a household in the 1870s, a small but growing middle-class family, living in a modest but comfortable home. At the center of the bedroom stands a sturdy wooden bed frame. Resting upon it is a mattress, stuffed with cotton perhaps or filled with wool. It offers some comfort, but it sags over time and lumps form where the stuffing shifts. Sleep, though better than what past generations knew, still leaves much to be desired. In such an environment, the idea of a mattress that could retain its shape, provide uniform support, and last for years was nothing short of revolutionary. People were ready for something new, something better. The modern mattress industry was about to answer that call, from ancient reeds and straw pallets, through the feather-stuffed beds of nobles, to the cotton-filled sacks of the early industrial age. The bed has come a long way. But the real revolution, the birth of the names we know today, was just beginning. Take another slow breath, let your shoulders sink, and imagine the faint crackle of a hearth fire in the distance. The room feels warmer now, safer, more inviting, as if you could listen for hours without distraction. With that comfort in mind, we step into the late 19th century, where the seeds of the modern mattress industry were planted by determined individuals who saw opportunity in something most people took for granted: the way we sleep. Our story begins in a small town in Texas with a man named Daniel Haynes. Haynes was not a wealthy industrialist or a famed inventor, but rather a simple cotton gin operator in the 1880s. At the time, cotton was one of the most important commodities in the United States. It was a fiber that clothed the nation, drove its economy, and defined much of its Southern identity. For Haynes, cotton was not just a business, it was everywhere around him, and he knew its potential. One day, instead of selling off every bit of the cotton he processed, Haynes decided to experiment. He began using leftover cotton to stuff mattresses for his neighbors. At first, it was an informal trade. Farmers and townsfolk who were used to straw mattresses found Haynes's cotton versions noticeably more comfortable. Cotton was cleaner, softer, and retained its shape longer than straw. Word spread quickly, and Haynes soon found himself producing more than just the occasional bed. He was building a reputation. In 1881, he patented a machine designed to compress cotton, making it easier to create uniform, durable mattresses. That small innovation laid the foundation for what would become the Sealy brand, named after Haynes's hometown of Sealy, Texas. The genius of Haynes was not just in making cotton mattresses, but in recognizing a larger truth. Comfort could be standardized, improved, and sold. The idea of a branded mattress, something identifiable and trustworthy, was new at the time. Most people simply bought a bed from a local craftsman or stuffed their own sacks at home. But with the industrial age sweeping across America, products were increasingly being mass-produced and marketed with names and promises. Sealy stepped into that current, transforming bedding from a household chore into a recognizable product. By the 1890s, Sealy had become more than a small-town operation. The brand expanded, licensing its patents to manufacturers across the country. Soon, Sealy was a name Americans knew, a brand associated with progress and comfort. Advertisements of the time began to present sleep not only as a necessity, but as a science, with Sealy at the forefront of this new frontier. One famous early slogan declared, "Sleeping on a Sealy is like sleeping on a cloud." That simple line captured the imagination of a public eager for modern comforts, and it helped elevate Sealy into a household name. While Daniel Haynes and Sealy were introducing cotton-filled mattresses to the masses, another pioneer was working on a very different innovation hundreds of miles away. His name was Zalman G. Simmons, and his approach would change the industry forever. Simmons was a businessman from Wisconsin who originally dealt in telegraph equipment and other ventures. By the late 1800s, however, he had turned his attention toward bedding. Unlike Haynes, who improved upon existing materials, Simmons embraced the emerging technology of the steel coil spring. Simmons saw potential in what most people might have dismissed as an oddity. Coil springs, when first introduced into mattresses, were considered strange and even unnecessary. After all, why replace cotton or feathers with metal coils? But Simmons understood something crucial. Springs offered consistent support. They did not shift like feathers, did not flatten like cotton, and could provide a firmness that many people's backs desperately needed. At a time when industrial workers and office clerks alike suffered from long hours of physical strain, the promise of a supportive mattress carried enormous appeal. In 1876, Simmons purchased a patent for a woven wire mattress, and by the 1880s, his company had begun mass-producing coil spring mattresses on a scale the world had never seen before. Simmons's gamble paid off. By mechanizing the process, he was able to produce beds faster and cheaper than competitors, making spring mattresses accessible to average families rather than just the wealthy. His company's motto captured the spirit of the time: better sleep for more people. The competition between Sealy and Simmons in these early years reflected two visions of comfort. Sealy championed the natural softness of cotton, while Simmons promoted the scientific support of springs. Both companies used advertising to carve out identities, appealing not just to the body but to the imagination. In an age when America was embracing progress, technology, and health reforms, the idea that your mattress could improve your quality of life was both powerful and persuasive. By the turn of the 20th century, these innovations were reshaping the way people thought about their beds. No longer were mattresses lumpy sacks of straw that had to be refilled or beaten into shape. Now they were products of industry and invention, designed with care, marketed with pride, and sold in stores alongside other modern conveniences. For the first time in history, the average American could buy a mattress from a brand they trusted, with the expectation that it would provide comfort and last for years. The cultural shift was profound. Sleep was beginning to be seen as something worth investing in, not just enduring. Doctors and reformers echoed this idea, connecting sleep to productivity, health, and even morality. Advertisements often portrayed exhausted workers, revived only after a restful night on a new mattress, or families gathered around to admire a freshly purchased Sealy or Simmons bed. These images reinforced the notion that good sleep was part of a good life, an idea that would only grow stronger as the 20th century progressed. But it was not only Sealy and Simmons shaping the industry. Other regional manufacturers began experimenting with their own designs, inspired by the growing demand for comfort. Some experimented with new fillings, from kapok fibers to wool blends, while others explored different spring designs. The late 1800s and early 1900s became a kind of golden age of mattress innovation, with patents filed, factories built, and new advertising campaigns launched in rapid succession. Yet, despite this burst of creativity, it was Sealy and Simmons that remained at the center of the story, their rivalry pushing each to refine their products and expand their reach. They were no longer just selling mattresses. They were shaping the cultural meaning of sleep itself. And in a rapidly modernizing America, where skyscrapers rose and factories hummed, people craved the comfort of a bed that promised rest from the chaos of the outside world. As the 19th century gave way to the 20th, the foundations of the modern mattress industry were firmly in place. Sealy had taken cotton and turned it into an empire, while Simmons had bet on coils and introduced an entirely new way of sleeping. Together, they had changed the very expectations of what a bed could be. The stage was set for further innovations, bigger dreams, and a new century of sleep science. And yet, the story was far from over. New materials would soon emerge, new marketing strategies would captivate the public, and a world at war would reshape industries in unexpected ways. The simple mattress, humble yet essential, was about to enter an era of transformation unlike anything it had seen before. Take a moment to breathe deeply, letting the air fill your lungs as though it carries the quiet hum of the past. Imagine again the soft flicker of a candlelight or the slow sway of curtains stirred by a midnight breeze. That gentle calm is the perfect companion as we move now into the early decades of the 20th century, a time when the mattress industry matured into something more than just production and rivalry. It became a cultural phenomenon, one that told people not only how to sleep but why it mattered. By the early 1900s, Sealy and Simmons had already secured their positions as leaders. Sealy had built its empire on cotton, compressing and shaping it into mattresses that promised a softer, cleaner alternative to the straw and wool sacks of the past. Simmons, with its bold embrace of coil springs, had offered something new: consistent support for tired backs and restless bodies. Together, they had laid the groundwork for a modern industry. But it was the new century itself, with its unique blend of optimism and upheaval, that would propel mattresses into the lives and imaginations of millions more. The opening decades of the 20th century were a time of rapid change. Cities grew taller, electricity flowed into homes, and industries pumped out new goods at an astonishing pace. People were working longer hours in offices, factories, and shops, and leisure time became precious. Sleep was no longer a simple biological need. It was now framed as a matter of efficiency and health. Doctors, reformers, and even business leaders began to talk about the importance of rest, linking it to productivity and vitality. The mattress industry was quick to seize upon this cultural shift. Simmons, in particular, made a daring move in 1925 that would cement its place in history. That year, the company introduced the Beautyrest mattress. Unlike the older wire mesh and open coil designs, the Beautyrest featured individually pocketed coil springs, each wrapped in fabric and able to move independently. This design offered something revolutionary: the ability to isolate movement. A sleeper could shift and turn without disturbing the person beside them. For couples, this was more than just a novelty. It was a new level of comfort and intimacy. Simmons poured enormous effort into marketing the Beautyrest, launching one of the most ambitious advertising campaigns of its time. The ads were bold and memorable. They featured images of delicate wine glasses balanced on one side of a mattress, while someone jumped on the other, demonstrating the absence of motion transfer. They promised that sleeping on a Beautyrest was not just rest, it was science in service of the body. With endorsements from doctors, celebrities, and even high society figures, Simmons positioned the mattress as both a luxury and a necessity. The price was higher than many competitors, but the message was clear: a good night's sleep was worth investing in. Sealy, not to be outdone, continued to expand and innovate. By the 1920s, the company had grown into a national presence, licensing its name and patents across the country. Sealy mattresses became a symbol of dependable comfort, often marketed with appeals to family life and health. The brand leaned heavily on the image of restful, happy homes, promising that sleeping on a Sealy mattress meant waking up refreshed, ready for the challenges of the day. Their slogan, "It's like sleeping on a cloud," resonated deeply with an audience eager for modern comfort in a fast-paced world. The growing focus on health during this period cannot be overstated. The early 20th century was an era when ideas of hygiene, wellness, and the scientific management of daily life flourished. People were told to eat balanced meals, to exercise, and increasingly to sleep properly. Advertisements for mattresses often showed tired office clerks slumped at their desks, or mothers exhausted from household chores, revived and renewed only after a night on a quality bed. The message was clear: without good sleep, you could not be your best self. Then came the Great Depression. The 1930s were marked by economic hardship, and industries across the country struggled. Yet even in hard times, people still needed beds. In fact, some manufacturers leaned into the idea that investing in a mattress was not an indulgence but a practical necessity. A sturdy mattress promised longevity, something that made sense when every dollar had to stretch further. Both Sealy and Simmons managed to weather the storm, though not without difficulty. Their survival during the Depression years underscored the enduring value people placed on rest, even in the leanest of times. The 1940s brought with them a new set of challenges. World War II reshaped industries everywhere, redirecting resources toward the war effort. Steel, an essential material for coil springs, was rationed, forcing mattress companies to adapt. Many manufacturers turned temporarily to alternative designs, creating beds with less metal or using substitute materials. The focus of the time was not on innovation or luxury, but on durability and practicality. For many families, mattresses became heirlooms of sorts, kept for years longer than before because replacing them was either difficult or impossible. When the war ended in 1945, however, the world shifted again. A wave of optimism swept through America. Soldiers returned home, families grew, suburbs spread, and consumer culture exploded. This post-war boom created fertile ground for mattress companies. Sealy, Simmons, and others capitalized on the rising prosperity, releasing new models and fresh advertising campaigns aimed at the swelling middle class. The 1950s, in particular, were a decade of transformation for the mattress industry. The rise of television meant that advertising reached into living rooms in ways it never had before. Mattresses were no longer sold simply as household necessities. They were portrayed as modern marvels, essential to keeping up with the times. Glossy ads promised not just comfort but style, aligning mattresses with the sleek modern look of mid-century homes. Families moving into suburban houses wanted furniture and bedding that reflected their upward mobility, and mattress brands provided it in abundance. The cultural language around sleep also evolved. Instead of being described only in terms of health or necessity, sleep became associated with luxury and indulgence. To sink into a mattress at the end of a long day was to treat oneself, to enjoy the fruits of modern living. Brands leaned heavily on this narrative, showing glamorous couples lounging on beds or housewives proudly displaying their new purchases as if they were works of art. The mattress was no longer hidden away in a private bedroom. It was a symbol of modern, domestic success. At the same time, new materials were slowly entering the scene. Foam padding, developed during the 1940s, began to be used more widely in mattresses by the 1950s. Though not yet the memory foam that Tempur-Pedic would later make famous, these early foams offered greater comfort and durability than traditional cotton or wool stuffing. Manufacturers experimented with layering coils, foams, and fibers to create combinations that promised both support and softness. The seeds of the next great revolution in sleep were already being planted. By the mid-20th century, the mattress industry had established itself as an essential part of American life. Sealy and Simmons were household names, synonymous with rest and reliability. Their advertisements filled magazines and airwaves. Their products lined the floors of department stores across the country. Sleep had become not only a necessity but a business, one tied deeply to ideas of health, comfort, status, and even identity. And yet the story was still only halfway told. The decades ahead would bring radical new technologies, daring new brands, and shifts in the very science of sleep itself. The rise of Tempur-Pedic in the late 20th century, with its space-age foam, would upend everything people thought they knew about comfort. But before that, the mid-century world still had more innovations to reveal. So as you settle into the rhythm of this unfolding history, remember the hum of factories, the glow of post-war optimism, and the promise of a bed that could carry you away from the struggles of the day. In the quiet hours of the night, the mattress became more than just a place to rest. It became a symbol of progress, resilience, and the dream of a better tomorrow. Breathe in slowly, as though the night air carries with it a calm you didn't realize you needed. Picture yourself in a quiet room where the steady glow of a lamp softens the walls, and the world outside feels distant. With that sense of calm wrapped around you, we move forward into the late 20th century, where the mattress industry once again found itself at the edge of transformation. This was a time of bold experiments, space-age materials, and marketing that promised not just better rest but a new way of living. By the 1960s and 70s, the mattress industry had matured into a well-established part of American consumer life. Sealy and Simmons were no longer new names, they were trusted brands, fixtures in department stores, woven into the fabric of home life. But the culture of the time demanded more than just tradition. America was in the midst of immense change. From the optimism of the post-war boom, society was now confronting civil rights struggles, shifting family dynamics, and a cultural revolution that questioned everything old and familiar. Even in something as intimate as sleep, people were searching for newness, for products that reflected progress. One of the key developments in this period was the growing use of polyurethane foam. Originally invented in Germany during the 1930s and popularized in American manufacturing during World War II, polyurethane foam was lightweight, versatile, and relatively inexpensive to produce. By the mid-20th century, mattress makers were using it as padding, layering it over springs to give sleepers a softer surface. Unlike cotton or wool, which compacted and lost shape, foam could provide consistent cushioning. For many families, foam mattresses became a symbol of modern living, something cleaner, more scientific, more advanced. Yet it wasn't just about materials. The 1960s also saw the rise of adjustable beds, marketed especially to older Americans or those with health concerns. Inspired by hospital designs, these beds could raise the head or feet at the touch of a button, offering relief for circulation issues or back pain. What had once been a purely medical tool was now being sold as a lifestyle upgrade, merging healthcare and comfort in a way that foreshadowed many later trends in the industry. The 1970s brought another shift. As advertising became more sophisticated, mattress companies leaned heavily into themes of wellness, romance, and modernity. Commercials often featured happy couples sinking into plush beds, surrounded by sleek, futuristic furniture. Brands promised that the right mattress could do more than support your body. It could support your marriage, your happiness, even your success. The bed was not just a tool for sleep, but a symbol of identity. Owning a Sealy or Simmons mattress meant you were keeping pace with a modern, successful lifestyle. But the greatest revolution of all was still to come. In the 1980s, a quiet development in the world of aerospace research was about to spill over into everyday life. Scientists working with NASA had created a special type of foam, viscoelastic polyurethane foam, designed to cushion astronauts during liftoff by absorbing pressure and distributing weight evenly. This memory foam, as it came to be called, responded to body heat and pressure, molding to the sleeper's shape before slowly returning to its original form. For years, it remained a scientific curiosity, used only in medical or industrial applications. But in the 1990s, it would become the foundation for a brand that would change the way people thought about mattresses. Tempur-Pedic's story begins in Sweden, where scientists experimented with this NASA-developed foam for hospital beds. Patients confined to long-term care often suffered from bed sores caused by pressure points, and the viscoelastic foam dramatically reduced this risk. The innovation was so striking that entrepreneurs saw its potential beyond hospitals. In the early 1990s, Tempur-Pedic introduced its first mattresses to the American market, and the response was nothing short of explosive. For the first time, consumers experienced a bed that felt utterly unlike anything before. Instead of bouncing back like springs or flattening like cotton, Tempur foam embraced the sleeper, cradling every curve and contour of the body. It absorbed movement entirely. If one person turned, the other barely felt it. The sensation was so new, so different, that many people described it as almost otherworldly. Tempur-Pedic leaned into this uniqueness with bold advertising, often demonstrating the foam's properties with memorable stunts. One famous commercial showed a glass of red wine balanced on the mattress, while someone jumped beside it. The wine remained still, proof of the foam's motion-absorbing power. Tempur-Pedic positioned itself not just as another mattress, but as a revolution. Their ads often featured phrases like, "Sleep like you've never slept before," and they were priced accordingly. A Tempur-Pedic mattress cost significantly more than a traditional spring bed, sometimes double or triple the price. But this exclusivity became part of the appeal. Owning one wasn't just about comfort, it was about stepping into the future. Meanwhile, traditional companies like Sealy and Simmons didn't stand still. They recognized the threat and adapted by adding layers of foam to their own spring designs, creating hybrid models that combined support with cushioning. In the 1980s and 90s, Sealy introduced its Posturepedic line, a mattress marketed with heavy emphasis on back support and endorsed by orthopedic specialists. Simmons doubled down on the popularity of its Beauty Rest line, refining the pocketed coil design and pairing it with softer padding. The competition between old and new drove innovation at a rapid pace. Beyond the products themselves, the way mattresses were sold also began to change. By the late 20th century, mattress showrooms had become a fixture in American cities and suburbs. Rows of beds lined up in brightly lit stores invited shoppers to test them out, often in the awkward but necessary ritual of lying down in public to try a mattress. Advertising grew more aggressive, with companies offering warranties, extended financing, and promises of scientific validation. Mattress shopping became not just a necessity, but a cultural experience, one that combined consumer choice with high-stakes decision-making. After all, these were products people would spend a third of their lives on. The broader culture also played a role. In the 1980s and 90s, health and lifestyle industries flourished. Gyms, diet programs, and wellness products filled magazines and television screens. Sleep became part of that conversation. Doctors and researchers were publishing more studies on the importance of rest, linking poor sleep to stress, illness, and even shortened lifespans. Mattress companies seized on this data, using it to position their products as essential tools for well-being. Owning the right mattress was no longer just about luxury. It was about health, about living longer and better. As the century drew to a close, the mattress industry had become a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut, driven by both tradition and innovation. Sealy and Simmons remained trusted names, the steady guardians of established comfort. Tempur-Pedic stood as the daring newcomer, offering a glimpse of the future with its space-age foam. Together, they defined an industry that touched nearly every household in America. And yet, the story was still not finished. The dawn of the 21st century would bring dramatic new challenges and opportunities. The rise of online shopping, the explosion of direct-to-consumer mattress startups, and a shift in how people thought about not just sleep, but the entire culture of wellness. The bed, once a simple sack of straw, had now become a centerpiece of modern life, and its story was only gaining momentum. So let your breath fall steady, as though you are lying back into the embrace of foam that remembers every contour of your body. The night grows deeper, but the tale moves forward, carrying us toward a world where the mattress would not only shape our sleep, but reflect the very way we live. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the gentle rhythm of rain against a window. A candle flickers nearby, its flame bending and straightening with the whisper of the air. In that cocoon of calm, it is easy to drift deeper into the story, to let history unfold not as a set of dry facts, but as something alive, something breathing. With that quiet sense of ease, we step into the first years of the 21st century, a time when the mattress industry faced one of its most dramatic upheavals yet. The 2000s were an era of acceleration. Technology was reshaping nearly every corner of daily life, from the way people communicated to the way they shopped. The rise of the internet created a new marketplace, one that was not bound by geography or tradition. Brick-and-mortar stores, once the gatekeepers of consumer experience, were suddenly being challenged by websites that promised convenience and lower costs. The mattress industry, so rooted in in-person showrooms where shoppers lay awkwardly on beds under fluorescent lights, was about to be turned upside down. For decades, buying a mattress had been one of the most dreaded shopping experiences. Consumers complained about confusing jargon, terms like pocket coils, inner spring gauge, and memory foam density. Prices were often hidden behind promotions, and aggressive sales tactics left many feeling pressured or deceived. In fact, surveys consistently listed mattress shopping among the least pleasant retail experiences, just behind car dealerships. It was a system begging for disruption, and the internet provided the perfect stage. Enter the direct-to-consumer model. Instead of going through retailers and middlemen, companies could now sell mattresses directly to customers online. This allowed them to lower prices, simplify choices, and create a modern, customer-friendly image. The first real wave of this revolution began in the early 2000s, but it was in the mid-2010s that one name in particular made the model famous: Casper. Casper launched in 2014, positioning itself as the Warby Parker of mattresses, referencing the eyewear brand that had pioneered online direct-to-consumer sales. Casper's approach was radically different. Instead of offering dozens of confusing options, it sold just one mattress, marketed as the perfect bed for everyone. It was shipped directly to customers' doors, compressed in a box small enough to fit through hallways and stairwells, then expanding to full size once opened. The unboxing process itself became a viral sensation, shared on social media as people marveled at a queen-sized bed springing to life from a cardboard package. The appeal wasn't only the product, but the entire experience. Casper used clean, modern branding, bright colors, and playful marketing that targeted millennials tired of traditional shopping. Its website was simple, its advertisements witty, and its policies customer-centric. Perhaps most importantly, it offered a 100-night trial with free returns. For the first time, people could try out a mattress in the comfort of their own homes without the fear of making a costly mistake. This trust-based model revolutionized expectations. Casper's meteoric rise sparked a wave of imitators. Companies like Purple, Tuft & Needle, Lisa, and Nectar flooded the online space, each promising some unique twist, be it a different foam formula, a cooling gel layer, or a quirky marketing campaign. Together, they became known as the bed-in-a-box movement. By the late 2010s, these startups had captured a significant share of the U.S. mattress market, once dominated by giants like Sealy, Simmons, and Tempur-Pedic. For the legacy brands, this disruption was both a threat and a wake-up call. Simmons and Sealy, now part of larger corporate groups, scrambled to develop their own online strategies. They launched hybrid mattresses that combined coils with foam, attempting to bridge the gap between tradition and innovation. Tempur-Pedic, confident in its premium positioning, leaned into research and development, introducing new cooling technologies and adjustable bases. But no matter how established these companies were, the energy of the new startups could not be ignored. The disruption was not only about business models, it reflected a broader cultural shift in how people thought about sleep. In the early 2000s, researchers and doctors began speaking more publicly about the sleep epidemic in America. Studies linked poor sleep to obesity, anxiety, heart disease, and reduced productivity. Books like Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, published later in 2017, reached bestseller lists and made ordinary people think differently about rest. Suddenly, sleep was no longer just something you did at night. It was a crucial pillar of health, as important as diet and exercise. The mattress industry seized on this narrative. Startups and legacy companies alike marketed their products not just as comfortable but as essential to wellness. They highlighted scientific studies, collaborated with athletes, and used phrases like performance-enhancing sleep. Mattress ads were no longer confined to bedroom imagery. They appeared in fitness magazines, wellness podcasts, and even technology expos. The bed had become a tool for living better, sharper, longer lives. Casper, for example, called itself a sleep company, rather than just a mattress brand. It expanded into pillows, sheets, and even nap pods for corporate offices. Purple leaned into its quirky identity, showcasing its unique hyper-elastic polymer grid in videos where raw eggs were dropped onto mattresses without breaking. Tempur-Pedic introduced innovations like Tempur-Breeze, designed to regulate temperature through the night. Simmons, determined not to be left behind, revitalized its Beauty Rest line with heavy investment in celebrity endorsements, including partnerships with athletes who tied their success to quality rest. Meanwhile, the economics of the industry grew staggering. Analysts estimated the U.S. mattress market at tens of billions of dollars, with online sales climbing rapidly year after year. By the late 2010s, nearly 20% of mattresses were purchased online, a figure that seemed unthinkable just a decade earlier. The competition was fierce and consumer choice exploded. Where once there had been just a handful of national brands, there were now hundreds of companies fighting for recognition in a crowded field. This crowded field created new challenges. The ease of starting an online mattress brand led to market oversaturation. Some companies folded under the weight of competition, while others merged or were acquired. Yet the impact of the disruption was undeniable. The consumer experience had permanently shifted. No longer did Americans expect to endure pushy salesmen and confusing stores. They wanted simplicity, transparency, and trust. And as the 2000s turned into the 2010s, another force would magnify this transformation: the rise of social media. Instagram, YouTube, and later TikTok became powerful tools for storytelling. Mattress companies leveraged influencers, sleek videos, and shareable unboxing clips to spread their message. The industry, once invisible in popular culture, now had a modern, youthful face. Through all of this, Sealy, Simmons, and Tempur-Pedic remained standing, but they were no longer the unquestioned rulers. They were veterans in a battlefield filled with young challengers, each offering new ways to think about comfort, health, and technology. The bed, once a humble object of necessity, had become one of the most hotly contested consumer products of the 21st century. As you exhale, imagine yourself lying back into one of those early bed-in-a-box mattresses, watching it rise and expand with a quiet hum, the air around you filling with possibility. The old world of heavy showrooms was fading, replaced by a digital frontier where choice was endless and the meaning of rest was being redefined. But the story does not stop here, for soon global challenges, economic pressures, and shifting lifestyles would test the mattress industry once again. Take a slow breath, letting the air move gently in and out as though you were resting near an open window on a calm evening. Outside, you might hear the faint stir of leaves or the rhythm of crickets, while inside, a quiet glow of lamplight keeps the darkness at bay. In this stillness, we move onward into the late 2010s and the early 2020s, a period when the mattress industry was not only thriving, but also about to be tested, in ways few could have imagined. By 2018, the direct-to-consumer mattress boom was in full swing. Casper, Purple, Lisa, Nectar, and dozens of smaller players filled the digital marketplace. Consumers could hardly browse social media without encountering advertisements for mattresses in boxes, trial offers, or quirky videos demonstrating foam technology. Legacy brands like Sealy, Simmons, and Tempur-Pedic had adapted to this new world, but the battlefield was more crowded than ever. For consumers, choice was abundant. For companies, survival depended on innovation and loyalty. This was also a time when the conversation around sleep became more urgent. Doctors, scientists, and journalists emphasized the dangers of sleep debt, pointing to studies linking inadequate rest to diabetes, depression, weakened immunity, and reduced life expectancy. Celebrities and athletes publicly endorsed healthy sleep routines. Arianna Huffington, co-founder of the Huffington Post, published her influential book, The Sleep Revolution, in 2016, calling for a cultural reset that prioritized rest as much as work. For the mattress industry, this was an opportunity. Their products could be framed not just as furniture, but as essential tools for health and performance. Advertising shifted accordingly. Mattress companies sponsored podcasts about mindfulness, partnered with wellness influencers, and released sleek campaigns about sleep hygiene. It wasn't enough anymore to say a bed was comfortable. It had to be scientifically proven to support spinal alignment or engineered to regulate circadian rhythm. The marketing language blurred the lines between medicine, science, and lifestyle, reflecting a broader cultural obsession with optimization. Then came 2020. The world changed almost overnight as the COVID-19 pandemic spread across the globe. The mattress industry, like so many others, was caught off guard. Showrooms shut their doors. Supply chains fractured. Foam shortages, shipping delays, and factory closures slowed production. Yet surprisingly, demand for mattresses surged. Why? Because suddenly home became everything. People were no longer spending their days in offices, schools, or public spaces. They worked, studied, and rested in the same rooms. Sleep quality took on a heightened importance, not only for physical health but also for mental well-being. Surveys during the pandemic revealed that millions of Americans struggled with insomnia, anxiety, and what researchers dubbed coronasomnia. A new mattress was one of the simplest, most tangible ways people felt they could improve their rest. The bed-in-a-box companies were uniquely positioned for this moment. With stores closed, online shopping became the default, and companies like Casper and Nectar reported record sales. Their model of doorstep delivery, trial periods, and easy returns fit perfectly with a socially distanced world. Sealy, Simmons, and Tempur-Pedic also saw renewed strength, as consumers trusted their established reputations during uncertain times. In fact, Tempur-Sealy International, the parent company of Sealy and Tempur-Pedic, reported soaring revenues in 2020 and 2021. Yet the pandemic also revealed vulnerabilities. Raw material shortages, particularly of polyurethane foam, drove prices up. Shipping delays left some customers waiting months for delivery. Smaller startups, unable to absorb rising costs, shuttered their businesses or merged with competitors. The market began to consolidate, with only the strongest brands surviving the storm. At the same time, innovation accelerated. Companies leaned into technology, developing mattresses with integrated cooling systems, sleep tracking sensors, and even smart adjustments that changed firmness throughout the night. The idea of a smart bed gained traction, with brands like Sleep Number and 8 Sleep pushing the boundaries of what a mattress could be. These beds connected to apps, recorded biometric data, and promised to optimize rest in real time. For some, this was the pinnacle of modern sleep science. For others, it was an unsettling reminder of how even the bedroom was becoming digitized. Consumer expectations also shifted. During the pandemic, many people reevaluated their priorities. Health, comfort, and stability became more important than luxury or status. Mattress companies responded by offering more flexible financing, emphasizing durability, and reassuring customers that their products were investments in well-being. Advertisements featured not glossy couples in perfect homes, but ordinary families seeking rest in turbulent times. And through it all, the giants endured. Sealy leaned on its reputation for dependable support. Simmons refreshed its branding to feel more youthful and approachable. And Tempur-Pedic continued to dominate the premium market, with products that promised unmatched pressure relief. Meanwhile, Purple's quirky marketing and innovative polymer kept it in the cultural conversation. While Nectar carved out a reputation for affordable luxury, the survivors of the bed-in-a-box boom settled into their roles, no longer newcomers but permanent fixtures in the industry. By 2022, as the world cautiously reopened, the mattress industry found itself stronger yet changed. Consumers had grown used to the convenience of online shopping, but also missed the tactile reassurance of in-store testing. Hybrid shopping models emerged, where customers could research online, then visit a small showroom, or even test beds at pop-up experiences in malls and airports. The line between e-commerce and physical retail blurred, reshaping how people interacted with the very idea of buying a bed. Looking back, it is striking to realize how deeply the pandemic intertwined with the story of mattresses. What was once just a household object became a symbol of care, stability, and renewal. People sought comfort in the most personal of spaces, and the mattress, humble yet essential, was at the heart of that pursuit. Breathe deeply again, as though you are settling into the quiet of a freshly made bed, the kind that holds you steady no matter what storms rage outside. This chapter closes with resilience, the mattress industry tested by crisis but emerging with renewed purpose. Yet the story continues, for in the years ahead, sustainability, global economics, and shifting lifestyles would again reshape how humanity sleeps. Feel the hush of night settle softly around you, like the warm weight of a quilt pulled gently across your shoulders. Somewhere in the distance, perhaps a soft breeze moves through unseen trees, steady and calm. In this moment of ease, we turn to the closing chapters of our story, a reflection on the modern mattress industry in the 2020s, where sustainability, identity, and the search for balance now shape how the world sleeps. The industry that once built its foundation on springs and cotton has entered a new era defined by global challenges and consumer consciousness. By the mid-2020s, one of the most pressing concerns in every industry, mattresses included, was sustainability. For decades, most beds had been built from petroleum-based foams, synthetic fabrics, and steel coils. When replaced, millions of old mattresses ended up in landfills each year, their bulky frames difficult to recycle, and their chemical content raising environmental concerns. This issue could no longer be ignored. In response, companies began embracing eco-friendly materials and practices. Organic cotton, natural latex, bamboo fibers, and plant-based foams grew in popularity. Smaller brands like Avocado and Birch marketed themselves as leaders in green sleep, offering mattresses certified by environmental standards. Their ads spoke not only of comfort, but of reducing one's carbon footprint, appealing to younger consumers eager to align purchases with values. Even giants like Tempur-Pedic and Sealy started weaving sustainability into their strategies, committing to reduce emissions, improve recyclability, and source materials responsibly. Sustainability wasn't only about materials, it was also about durability. Consumers began demanding mattresses that would last longer, resisting the cycle of frequent replacement encouraged by decades of marketing. Brands highlighted 10-year warranties, stronger stitching, and foams that resisted sagging. The idea was simple. A mattress should be not just a product of the moment, but a long-term companion. At the same time, the cultural meaning of mattresses deepened. In the age of social media, the bed was no longer just where people slept. It was often where they worked remotely, scrolled through phones, or binge-watched shows. For many, the bedroom became a hybrid space of rest, productivity, and leisure. Influencers staged perfectly lit bedscapes on Instagram, while lifestyle brands marketed entire aesthetics, sheets, pillows, frames, around the central image of the mattress. Owning the right bed became part of self-expression, a declaration of identity. Competition also grew increasingly global. Companies in Asia and Europe began exporting innovative designs, challenging American dominance. Adjustable beds, long popular in Japan, gained traction worldwide. In Scandinavia, high-end brands like Heston's drew attention for their handmade luxury horsehair-filled mattresses that cost as much as a car. American consumers, exposed to these global trends online, began expecting more choices, more customization, and more transparency. The industry had truly become international in scope. Technology, too, pushed boundaries. Smart mattresses capable of tracking heart rate, breathing, and sleep cycles became more sophisticated. Some adjusted firmness automatically based on the sleeper's movements, while others integrated with smart home systems, syncing with thermostats and lighting to create a holistic sleep environment. For some, these advances felt like a marvel of modern science. For others, they stirred unease with sleep, the most natural of human needs, becoming too mechanical, too monitored. The debate reflected a broader cultural tension between convenience and privacy, innovation and simplicity. Through all this change, the legacy names endured. Sealy, Simmons, and Tempur-Pedic, each with roots stretching back over a century, remained central players. They had weathered wars, depressions, and technological revolutions, and now they stood firmly in the digital age, adapting while carrying their history forward. Tempur-Pedic continued to dominate the premium space, synonymous with pressure-relieving foam. Sealy leaned on its reputation for support, constantly refining its Posturepedic line. Simmons, through Beauty Rest, kept the flame of pocketed coils alive, reminding consumers that even in a world of foam and sensors, springs still had a role to play. What is perhaps most striking in this final stretch of the story is how the mattress, a humble object once stuffed with straw, has come to symbolize so much. It is a marker of health, identity, and values. It reflects how societies evolve, how priorities shift, and how even the most ordinary object can hold extraordinary meaning. To lie down on a mattress today is to touch not only fabric and foam but also centuries of invention, adaptation, and imagination. As we close, let us return to where we began, the quietness of rest. Imagine yourself in a room bathed in the golden glow of lamplight, the steady hush of night outside. Beneath you, a mattress supports every curve, carrying the weight of your body with ease. Within it lies a history that stretches from hand-tied coils in the 1800s to the memory foam of NASA labs, from showrooms of the 20th century to the digital marketplaces of today. It is more than a product. It is a companion through 1/3 of your life, a silent witness to your nights and mornings. And so, the story of Sealy, Simmons, Tempur-Pedic, and the countless others who shaped the industry is not simply about beds. It is about humanity's endless search for comfort, health, and renewal. A story that began with straw-filled sacks has become a tale of science, sustainability, and self-expression. And while the mattress will continue to evolve in the decades ahead, its purpose remains timeless: to cradle us in rest, to restore us for tomorrow, and to remind us night after night of the profound beauty of sleep. So take one last deep breath. Let the calm settle in, and as this story closes, may the comfort of history, like the comfort of a well-made mattress, stay with you long after the final word.